What is with the recent failures of ISRO? People are going hyper saying it was a sabotage. What's my opinion? What are the causes, and was this really a sabotage? Considering it was the rocket was launching military satellites. Real Vladimir Putin says recent rocket failure by ISRO looks like a sabotage. First, it was important for India's national security as well as ISRO's international reputation as a reliable space agency for satellite launches. Secondly, these type of failures by ISRO are very rare. So what the rocket that failed is ISRO's PSLV rocket. So the PSLV rocket had a string of almost like 18-20 successful launches. It was so successful, its launches had become boring. Everyone knew it would go flawlessly. And then the last two launches have failed. It's always the same problem. Something happens, something goes wrong at the third stage. So let's just quickly take a look at ISRO, I mean, the PSLV, the way the PSLV has been performing. Last 20 PSLV launches, success, failure. Let's see what it says. Okay. So last 20 PSLV launches up to 2026, ISRO 2 consecutive failures. Before that, the PSLV was incredibly reliable, most missions being fully successful. The last two launches have failed. 2026, January 12, and 2025, May 18. May 18 was the first major failure in over a decade. Third stage, 21 consecutive successful flights before this. And as you can see, we are having very few rocket launches now in India. May 18, 2025, and then January 12, 2026, PSLV. Obviously, we have other rockets, but as you can see, India is not launching a lot of rockets anymore. So yeah, we've had two consecutive failures. Both time it's been a glitch in the third stage. Now the question is, what happened? This incredibly reliable rocket, 21 consecutive successful launches. Why should things start going wrong with that? Makes no sense, right? It's a design the ISRO engineers have perfected. It works flawlessly every time, and now suddenly two consecutive failures. Same issue. Something goes wrong with the third stage. Is this sabotage? Well, look back at the past. We've had issues like this. For example, in the 1980s, when the French were developing the Ariane rocket, they had multiple failures, which was then traced back to a Soviet spy, a Soviet saboteur, and all of that is now conveniently buried. You look for information today, it won't show you anything. But I've seen that. I was a kid in the 1980s. And if you're in Europe, this came on the news. So you had this sort of thing before, okay? And if you remember, a couple of years ago, I had made a video about the possibility that Chandrayaan-2 may have been hacked and sabotaged, right? And I had given evidence that indicates there's the possibility, significant possibility, that Chandrayaan-2 was actually sabotaged. It did not just fail because of some normal issue. And now we have PSLV, in India's most successful, most reliable workhorse rocket, failing completely out of the blue 2 times in succession. And each time it failed, it was carrying sensitive satellites that are important for India's national security, right? So that obviously raises the possibility that this may have been a sabotage. The other launches were, well, non-national security satellite launches, but the past two failures, the 2 consecutive failures, the rocket was carrying satellites connected with India's national security, military satellites, so to say, military applications. So do I know what's happened? I haven't analyzed this in detail. The government will obviously set up an inquiry. ISRO will do an inquiry. It will put out some kind of, report of the inquiry, possibly in the public domain, maybe not. But whatever will be put out in the public domain, it may not be the entire story, right? Excuse me. Because of security reasons. Some things have to be kept classified. So we in the public, what can we assume what happened? What I can say is that, look, there are multiple issues. First of all, it is very clear now that India is not taking the space program seriously at all. The government of India is essentially treating the space program as something that should be kept on life support. Have 3 or 4 rocket launches a year, maybe 5 maximum or 6 maximum, and that's about it. The Chinese launch more than 100 rockets every year. SpaceX launches hundreds of rockets every year. SpaceX launches more rockets in a week than India launches in a year. And we are not developing any major new rocket. It's all iterative, incremental progress. Why can't India develop a rocket that's like 10 times more powerful than the GSLV? Why not? Right? So India is not taking space seriously. The government of India has decided, for whatever reason, to just keep the space program on life support. Don't do anything ambitious. Just keep it going. Funding is minimal. I've been saying this for a long time, that ISRO is starved of funding. ISRO is made to do missions on a shoestring budget. I've said this multiple times in the past few years. I've said this on other podcasts outside of this channel too. I've said this on the Beer Biceps channel, Ranveer Labadia. And then Ranveer interviewed Dr. Somnath, the then head of ISRO. And Ranveer asked Dr. Somnath about the criticism I've been making. That ISRO, not the criticism, but the point I've been making, that ISRO it is starved of money. The budgets are very low. And he said that, you know what, the budgets, certain missions are green lighted by the government, and some money is given for that. And if the money is obviously limited, and at the end of the year, sometimes you have to return the money to the government. So that's how it is. I mean, whatever is left over, in case ISRO has been successfully extremely frugal or whatever. So overall, ISRO is starved of funding. Very few rocket launches a year. If you have a perfectly reliable rocket, you want to launch it over and over again, so that no flaws creep into the design and the manufacturing. But if you have a perfectly reliable rocket, but you launch it only 3 times a year, let's say, then there's a big gap between 2 consecutive builds of the rocket. And that increases the possibility that some defects may creep in potentially. So, and people have been putting out pictures of the workmanship on the rocket, on the PSLV rocket, on social media. The workmanship looks shoddy. At least the paint jobs look shoddy. Of course, the paint job doesn't matter. The structural integrity and other characteristics of the rocket are more important. But it looks like there's a lack of pride in the way the rocket is painted, just shabbily, shoddily painted and all. So looks like the standards aren't what you expect them to be. So what do I think happened? Is it just shoddy workmanship, low standards by ISRO, or is it sabotage? If you ask me, look, I don't have the real information of what's happening inside, behind the scenes. But sitting over here, and as someone who has been tracking the progress of ISRO for a long time, and as somebody who has some understanding of these things, I would say I would give the probability of sabotage at 60% or 65%, and the probability of just a regular failure at 30 to 35%. So I think the likelihood of a sabotage is more than the likelihood of an accident, a normal accident. That's what I believe. Because it's a pattern we are seeing here, and this sort of patterns have happened before. The ISRO has been targeted before. I still believe very strongly that there's a high likelihood that Chandrayaan 2 was sabotaged. Okay, some clowns were mocking me when I put out that video at the time. Where are they now? So I think there's a high likelihood this was a sabotage. Can I prove it? No, because I don't have access to the inside information. The government needs to take this very seriously. And the government needs to take the space program very seriously, not treat it like a stepchild, which is what we are seeing right now.